Now I'd like to invite Ryan and our two panelists to join us up here. And I'll let the panelists introduce themselves, but let me just explain to you. Jan Garb is Vice President, Electrical and Instrumentation of BASF based in Ludwigshafen. If you've ever been to BASF Ludwigshafen, it's probably, I'd say, one of the most intimidating sites that I've ever been on. There's well over 100 process units, all kinds of underground storage. And my impression the first time I went there was, my God, how do people do operations and maintenance in this facility? There must be some effort, a huge amount of effort involved in O&M for a facility that is that deeply coupled with that many units in a relatively a large site, but still a very complex operation. BASF has also been pushing many of these kind of standards as ExxonMobil has suggested, going to the vendors, going to their suppliers and their potential suppliers and saying, you know, let us hear what you're going to do for us. And they're doing a lot of greenfield and brownfield work as well. So that's why Jan is here. Amanda Blevins is Vice President and CTO of VMware. I told Amanda that a lot of people maybe not in this room, but at this event are probably not familiar with VMware, so I'll let her do that. And as evidence of that, I'm ashamed to say, if you look on the app, we spelled VMware with 2 words, and it's 1 word. So clearly, there's a lack of familiarity there. So I'll start with Jan, and I'll ask you, just to introduce yourself and to talk about some of the activities and standards that you are working with and trying to promote in your work at BASF.
Thanks for the nice introduction and some comments to your view on Ludwigshafen. I think we are very familiar what we are doing there. It's a big site, so therefore we have 35,000 employees there, more than 200 plants. And for sure, it's a challenge, but we have digital tools also to find the plants we need to go to. Yeah, so this is for sure. I think we have a treasure there as well, that we have well-educated and experienced engineers to working on these topics, not just on the daily topics, but also on strategic topics. I'm really proud also to lead a big group of this team there, and also developing new technologies. No? So and one of our newest technologies, now also one of our answer to the digitalization is APL. It's the advanced process layer. So therefore, this is our answer to bring the Ethernet really to the field device. But I would start with a flashback. As I started my engineering career, my background is also automation. So in 1999, I deployed the first remote I/O based on Profibus DP in a chemical plant in a hazardous area. It was an innovation and a challenge, and I like challenges. Yeah. And this was really the right way to really reduce the cost for the installation, but also for the commissioning. Yeah? You avoid or banished all this marshalling. So you have just one wire, go into the field, have the device and go then to it, or the remote and go then to the device. I think this was a first step in the right direction. After that, we had some developments, in my opinion, that brought a lot of complexity in the market and didn't bring the benefits that we expected also as a company. So what we considered also with having in mind that we will run a big investment in China, 10 billion new Verbund site in China, we thought, what can we do different? What can we do standardized? And what can we do open for all to bring the digitalization and the Ethernet to the field? And our answer, as I said, is the advanced process layer. So that means you can use your Ethernet coming to a switch and going from the switch with a twisted pair to the device, and the device is Profinet ready, and you can get all the informations, more than the normal informations, from the device into the DCS system. And it's even more open for more information that you need there. So, and this is what we are pushing at the moment. We have suppliers, they committed to deliver devices. We had the test lab. We have also field tests in China running under the conditions we will face there. And yeah, I'm really happy to say that this is an open standard. Everybody can use that. We drive it in Europe together with the NAMUR. We developed it there. And also other big companies are using that at the moment and looking really what our experiences are there also to deploy that.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I turn to Amanda, and just to please speak into the microphone so that we get the audio captured. But for those of you who are not familiar, VMware really was central to developing in the data centers virtualization and what the cliche buzzword would be a software-defined data center. So them being members of the Open Process Automation Forum and engaged in the ExxonMobil field trial project and probably others, I thought we'd like to have you here. So maybe you could give us a little introduction to VMware and first of all, know that it's one word, not two.
Yes, it is one word, and we capitalize our V and our M and none of the other letters. But it's confusing because our stock ticker is 3 capital letters. So I've been with VMware almost 13 years. VMware as a company was formed 25 years ago. It's our 25th birthday this month, so it's a little special month for us. And we did start virtualization on the x86 platform, specifically with the Intel processor. And in fact, Intel told us at the time that that processor could not be virtualized at all. So you can maybe learn a bit about our culture from that activity, saying, yes, it can. And we help them debug their platform at the same time. And so fast forward 25 years, we do a lot of things besides virtualize compute. We virtualize compute, network, security, and storage. We do cloud management across whether you're running workloads on a VMware platform or native Azure, native AWS, or native GCP. We manage devices, make it easier for you all to do your day jobs, accessing your applications and your data. And so you might think, hey, what is VMware doing in process automation in the OT world? Well, maybe you've been virtualizing some of your systems on L3, L4 for a long time. About maybe 20-ish years ago, I worked for a manufacturing company and did that myself out at the plant. So I think this is an extension of the work that we've already been doing. And a big investment area for us as a company. And so Edge is a big part of our business model moving forward. If somebody's deploying a 5G network, it might be on our platform too. And you might say, hey, that's telco, we're not interested. But there are a lot of requirements that are similar around performance and latency and things like that. So it does help our development to focus on both areas at once.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'd maybe address this to Ryan and to Amanda. Can you talk about you talked about Yokogawa. I'd like to know specifically a little more about VMware and their participation in the field trial. And specifically what I'd like to know is how what you're doing in that field trial, and specifically VMware, how that compares to the IT world. So, and what you typically do there.
Okay, I'll start. So when ExxonMobil first reached out, and we've had a relationship with ExxonMobil for a long time, but specifically for this project, learning about the requirements of the advanced compute platform, we're like, hey, we've done that for a long time. You mentioned software-defined data center. Our CEO, Raghu, coined that term in the mid-2016, I think. And so software-defined is what we do. And so software-defined essentially means like, hey, you have a capability that only existed in hardware, now it's in software, but also something being software-defined means that you can automate it. And it's a lot easier to automate because you're not going against proprietary hardware. And that's true in the IT world. And that's why virtualization helps, because it provides that abstraction layer. So when you're abstracted, then you can automate a lot better, and you have certain APIs and things like that. So when we learned about the advanced compute platform and also the requirements for the DCNs, we're like, hey, we've done this work before, but let's understand what the specific requirements are. So needing to run your HMI, needing to run your controlled runtimes, needing to run anything else, machine learning workloads. That's something we've done for a long time in data centers, a long time for folks in cloud environments and at the edge. You know, whether you go to a hospital, a retail store, or fly on an airplane or anything like that, that's almost always on the VMware platform. So when we understood, and we spent a lot of time on this, you know, gathering, understanding the requirements for this implementation, and we identified that the standard software that the rest of the world runs on does support the requirements of the ACP in this project. Now we have another product line called Tanzu, and Tanzu is Japanese for small box. And so it aligns to our modern application solutions. Modern applications in the IT world referred to as those that are built with containers and microservices. And so on our Tanzu platform, and also in vSphere, what you all might know for compute virtualization, we support containers. We have Kubernetes built in, which is the orchestration layer for containers themselves. So one of the asks was, can we run this runtime in a container, even though it's never been done before? And so we have the capability to do that. But really, making sure that our platform can meet the uptime requirements, the safety, the reliability, and the resiliency is probably one of the most important things in this project. And so far, everything has aligned. And that also means that, so I'm in the research and innovation organization in the office of the CTO, and this also helps drives our requirements. So if there's something that our software doesn't do, well, hey, now we can understand that, and now we can improve our software, through these partnerships.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ryan. Yeah, I'd like to, maybe if you could comment a little bit on how things came together between your team at ExxonMobil, your system integrator team, and both VMware and the other suppliers that you've engaged in this project.
Yeah, I really think to build on what Amanda said, leveraging the capabilities VMware brought to the table and the talent and know-how that we had lived with and benefited from in virtualizing much of our level 3 and level 4 architecture, as well as virtualizing level 2 more recently, right? And so continuing with that journey, coupled with the know-how of Intel, with their chip level expertise, as well as some of the enablement that they've brought to the table, Dell around the hardware, and then Schneider Electric and Yokogawa bringing in some of the control expertise, right? And so really it was a marriage of multiple talents coming together to really focus on how do we differentiate the value from the capability we wanted in the advanced compute platform, which Amanda touched on some of the architectural premises, the ability to deploy software containers, control basically in containers, from a support, from an orchestration, so that we throw that word around nowadays in the industry all the time. I think of it as basically task automation, right? So how do we deploy not only a resilient, robust, high availability platform that runs process control, has extensible CPU, compute, storage, et cetera. It gives you all the flexibility you want there. So you're not running out of resources, or you can expand resources as needed. But you can also leverage that platform to deploy a lot of the things that you would naturally today do in a virtual environment, such as your domain infrastructure, your supervisory advanced control and optimization solutions. It just gives you a tremendous amount of capability to bring both what I would say is regulatory supervisory control, as well as your normal level 3 capability set in a very robust performant solution.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. What I'd like to do now is open this up to the floor. So we've got a microphone moving around. So if you've got a question, please raise your hand. Identify yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Hey guys, thank you very much for the presentations. Cristobal Ruiz with Dow Chemical. And the questions that I have is fairly simple, and I guess I have three as a matter of fact, if I may. First two is for Ryan. If Ethernet APL is available, would you implement that in your field trial?
That's a short answer, Ryan.
Yeah? Is that a yes?
No, I think, so my response is that wasn't the immediate focus in terms of our objective set. So I'm going to weasel maybe a little bit, but so the focus is really demonstrating what's available in the OPA standards today that can bring value to the business that we're implementing the field trial project for. So, while we didn't exclude APL per se, it wasn't really a focused technology area for this particular application. So obviously we're very interested in what APL and the value that it can bring to the table, which was, touched upon, and BSF's experience here. So very interested in it, look forward to the promise that it brings and really trying to benefit from that moving forward.
I guess that answers the second question. The last question that I have is, what kind of skills do you believe that the ExxonMobil or the BASF workforce will need to acquire to be able to develop, engineer, and sustain this kind of infrastructure? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily going to go into a list of specific skills, but what we found is the right synergy is taking some of the talent we have currently deployed in our, what we would call an ExxonMobil or Emmett organization or IT organization, and bringing that talent together with some of the folks that have traditionally been working instrumentation, control systems, and control applications, and smashing those folks together. So in this case, we're not necessarily de facto training each of those individuals the same way, but we're allowing them to work, side by side in a collaborative environment so they can benefit from each other's expertise and leverage each other's strengths. So we really see that as the near-term strategy for how we're really trying to, overuse terms, but the IT-OT convergence, how we're trying to, on the skills side, benefit from the best of all the expertise we have in our corporation by having that close collaborative working environment. And OPA has been an awesome experience to allow that, to see that play out in real time.
I'd like to ask Jan if you have something you would want to add into that in terms of, you mentioned that you were putting Ethernet APL devices in some of these greenfield applications. What stage are you in terms of training people, and what are you thinking in that direction for the skill set that people are going to need?
Thanks for the question. I think it's needed to train the people there. And this is one pillar in our preparation to deploy that really in our big Verbund site then in China, so that we have one training course, not just one training course, but one pillar to really educate the people to do the right things there. But it is not so sophisticated. So it's rather easier than the other stuff what we deployed before. So if you have in mind the complexity in the device will be less, the marshalling, the commissioning will be less, but they need to know what kind of things, how to set the parameter and then. So I think training is needed to get familiar the people with them, help them also to make the troubleshooting. So therefore we set also a team up in Ludwigshafen to support the guys in China. But meanwhile, we will also deploy these devices also in Ludwigshafen so that we gain a lot of experience, field experiences in real plants to be prepared then for the startup in China.
Okay, thank you. I don't know where the microphone is, but are there another question? Mark has a question here. It's hard for me to see the hands, but Mark in the front row here has a question.
So is the organization recommending that the specification be built into requests for proposals going forward for its members and others?
I'll direct that to Don, I think.
Yeah, Mark, I want to give a shout out to Alex Johnson, who's not a shy guy. Started saying, I don't know, Alex, 4 years ago, if you want something to happen, put it in the bid spec. And we talk about that. We tried, the forum had a go at writing, help me guys, we had a contracting guide or something like that? Procurement guide. Thanks, Luis. That's Luis Duran from ABB. Yeah, no, but Mark, I think it's been unpublished but acknowledged. That's how I would answer your question. That if you really want action, write the requirement for OPAF conformance into the bid spec, succinctly stated. And Alex was the first guy to blurt that out.
So, Alex, will you say that into the microphone so we record it for posterity, please?
At the bare minimum, buyers should write into their spec that they want to see the OPAS compliance roadmap from their vendor. I mean, just put that in there. At least then you'll get the story from them. And sometimes they'll tell you they have, potentially, they'll tell you they have an offer. Then you can choose to use it or not as your project needs. But ask for it. Just ask for the roadmap.
Yeah, that's right. So therefore, I would underpin that a bit and also say that Todd Enslinger said in one session before that the oil and gas industry, the chemical industry is champion in piloting, yeah? But I think we need also to push that more. Ne? And regarding APL, honestly, we are doing that now and we are putting that as a requirement if we are going for a request for a bid, yeah? So this is what we are doing and we need to push that. So if we're not doing that, then we will not bring it on the road, yeah? So that's for sure.
And I will second the notion that when you did that, the suppliers noticed because we heard a lot about it.
Yeah, for sure. There were also some question: is it really real, and is it really that it is the future? And then still some concerns. They're also expecting that from us, I would say. Yeah?
No, it was a disturbance, you might say. So still for questions from the floor.
Mark Hoskey from Control Engineering again. How different or more difficult or expensive will it be to create I/O or compute products? Have any vendors said what a price premium might be, if any, for the products that are produced according to the specification? And then are there any products that are close now to the structures based on the knowledge of the standard while it was under development?
Gee, I don't know if we have all the right people here on the panel. If anybody wants to pick that up, maybe Ryan.
So maybe I can speak to the two questions in reverse order, right? So I can speak to, we've spent the last 2 years testing commercial and pre-commercial products in our test bed, right? To see from an ExxonMobil perspective, do they meet our requirements, effectively our business requirements, if you think of it that way. But we were also testing them with the mindset of did they meet the intent of today's standard, right? The OPAS version 2.1. And so, yes, there are products that we feel meet those qualifications, and that was the basis for the products that we've chosen to go into the field trial that I talked about. Didn't plan on naming names today, obviously, but next year at this time, post startup, I'll be obviously prepared to name names and have everybody come to the site and check it out, for that matter. But as it relates to the cost of conformance, I mean, that's obviously a consideration the OPA Forum has thought through and tried to make sure that, one, the conformance process itself, it's being established, is streamlined and being sensitive to not increasing or not creating a significant burden on the suppliers that would drive the cost higher. But I don't have any specific numbers.
Okay, you have another question?
Can I just, if I may?
Oh, sure, Don.
Mark, so here's what we found. You asked particularly about the I/O. So, in my remarks about the physical realization of the I/O node, I want to focus on that concept. So, if a fixed appliance head unit might not be the right tool for the job, but what we found by working with I/O suppliers, if they can substitute in a device that has a little bit more compute capability, it can host the OPC-UA services required to serve as the DCN I/O node. And that's what we have found by working with what we call the willing suppliers in the OPA business ecosystem. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. I'm going to ask a quick, we'll get to you, but a quick question of Amanda, because we're talking about in a different life cycle or life expectancy. And when you talk about your products, the Kubernetes software didn't exist 7 years ago, and 7 years from now, it'll probably be something else. So can you talk about how you plan to address the long life cycle of industrial automation systems with your products and how you do that? That's quite a bit different from the data center, or is it?
Yeah, it actually is not so different from the data center. And as a software company, and probably all of your software companies recommend, is that we want you to stay up on the latest version. One, you get the best features, but two, there's bug fixes, and probably most importantly, security fixes, right? Security patches. So recently in the news, you might have seen that there's a big ransomware attack right now hitting our systems that are exposed to the internet, which they shouldn't be. But the version is 2 versions ago, which means that we haven't been producing security patches for this. So it's a 2-year-old flaw that now these bad actors are exploiting for ransomware. So with any piece of software, if there's any way to get access to it, and if something on your network is connected to the internet, there's always a way. You want to make sure that you stay at the latest version. So one of the benefits of using our platform is virtual machines or containers running as virtual machines are just files, just like your Word document, your Excel spreadsheet, which means that they can be moved around. And so with our technology, we can keep a virtual machine running and have it be on one server, and then also keep it running without interruption and run it on the other server. So we call it vMotion, or it migrates. And with that same technology, that means that we can do rolling upgrades of our systems. So say a new version of our software comes out, it doesn't mean that you need to take the environment down. It means that you're able to keep all those virtual machines, all those containers, all those workloads running and responding. You can still manage it, but at the same time, you can patch those systems to make sure it's at the latest version. So it's pretty much the same as a data center.
Okay, thank you. Well, people are glad to know that we don't have to shut everything down to do that, I'm sure.
That's the most important part.
Right. Okay, there was a question here, please.
All right, Keith Deshary, and this is a question for Jan. Boss, I want you to elaborate a little bit more on one part, as this is a reminder for you. So I want you to kind of comment on our APL, but also the recent testing that we did that I think would be of interest to everybody with SIS over APL.
Keith, thanks for the question. Then, honestly, this is the beauty of the system. So we can use for the normal system, for the normal DCS control, but also for the safety system, the same devices and the same parts of the infrastructure. So therefore, you lay two rings with the switches. One is for the normal operation and one is for the safety. And then you can select later on which device needs to go to which system. So this is the beauty also in the engineering. So you can pre-engineer much earlier your infrastructure, and later on, if also the sys applications are defined, then you can connect to the system where it needs to go to. And in the device of the APL, there's a stack you need to be activated so that you can run the ProfiSafe protocol, so that it's safe also for the sys systems. Yeah? Thanks, Keith.
Good prompt. Oh, there's a question over here, please.
Well, it wasn't a question. I was going to try and reply to the cost effort. I just want to say that there's nothing in the OPAF specification that clearly raises the cost of manufacture. So it's not obvious that there would be any significant difference in manufacturing the hardware.
Okay, there's a question behind you.
Firstly, thank you for the nice presentation. My question to Rayan is that how you qualify your test bed? I mean, it's just the conformance to the CRQs, or how you did the testing?
Could you say that again? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
My question to Rayan is that how he qualified the test bed? I'm talking about the test bed he made. Like it's just the conformance testing of CRQ, or I think how you make the test cases?
Yeah, I mean, so basically we developed working with Yokogawa as our system integrator, effectively a test protocol against a set of what I called our requirements, or end user requirements, and feathered into that, obviously making sure that those requirements represented the key essence of what was embodied in the OPAF standard, right? And so then Yokogawa, with their support, developed test scripts to take those products. If in some cases, you're going back to Don's presentation, some of that is compute DCNs, DCNs with I/O, different device types, and took them through their tests. And a kind of like your IT environment, you had 4 different environments, and we would promote the devices into different environments and basically test the integration of those devices with their peers on the OCF, which is the network or the way they were talking together via, in this case, OPC UA predominantly. So it's a very detailed, internally developed with the support of Yokogawa test protocol, which really embodies a lot of what Don talked about with the forum establishing a conformance work process against profiles. Obviously, it doesn't look the exact same, but effectively delivered the same type of outcomes and results to determine what was meeting requirements and what still had some gaps. And we've had a lot of suppliers that have worked with us to close many of those gaps over the time period we've been doing this work to prepare again for further application, like in the field trial that's coming up later this year.
Okay, now my question to Don, that when the test cases was done with Exxon, they must have referred the standard 1.0. Now the 2.1 is released. So how the difference will be, the testing?
Well, we didn't write any formal verification criteria against OPAS version 1. Now we are launching, so all of the conformance requirements and the test cases are baselined against OPAS version 2.1. There is a very formal, well-documented process for how conformance certification will evolve over time. What are the criteria by which a product needs to be recertified? It's all very well documented. Susan, help me out. I know we have it in our conformance guide, but there's probably more detailed. Yeah, so this is Susan Harper from the Open Group. It's a very well detailed work process.
Yeah, we have a certification policy, certification guide, as well as an agreement and trademark license agreement. We'll also have something called verification matrices, which will basically break it down into those atomic units, test cases, and all that. All that will be published when we launch our certification program.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have time for maybe one more. If there's one more question. No, I guess people are starting to think about something else. Okay, one more, but it better be brief. Sorry to say that.
I can do one question. Every time I try to explain the OPAS standard, I explain the DCN as the central element. And Don showed us today that you can have many DCNs, DCN for IOs, DCN. The question is, how can I easily explain what DCN is? Because every time I try to explain, they say, "Oh, it's a gateway." I say, "No, it's not just a gateway."
We'll leave that one with you, Don. Go ahead.
Luciano, I think that set of five drawings that we titled the Rosetta Stone, I would point you to use that as the means for explaining the different configurations or interpretations of the distributed control node, okay? And I think the three essential ones are the I/O node, the DCN compute node, and the gateway device. That's the 1, 2, 3.
Okay,
thanks.
We are out of time, and I'm not going to extend this session through the reception. There is a reception that's beginning now. I encourage you to stay around here and chat or go to the reception and chat. I unfortunately have to go to another meeting. Otherwise, I'd like to spend a lot of time with these people. But please thank these people for their